What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. This last 4 weeks, man, it's been absolutely crazy. Probably the most unforgettable stretch of American history that we've seen, at least in our lifetime. The left and the AP, they're absolutely losing their minds over Trump's bold move to rename Gulf of Mexico to Gulf America. Talk about shaking things up. And did you guys happen to catch Scott Jennings on CNN? I got a couple clips to share with y'all. We got to talk about that as well. He had the host, Kate Baldwin, stammering as she desperately clung to these whack mainstream narratives that Elon Musk and President Trump aren't being as transparent as they should be in reference to Doge. There's so much happening right now. And the MAGA Nation, this is our time, man. We got to break it down. We got to dive into these clips. But these last 4 weeks have been absolutely historic. Like, share, subscribe to the channel. Let's get into it.
Breaking news, mass firings have begun at federal agencies, according to employee and union sources. Probationary employees are being fired at the Department of Education and the Small Business Administration. Now, until now, federal employees across the government were just placed on administrative leave. Jamal is back with us at the table. These firings appear to affect people. The Department of Education has been in Doge's sights. People in the Office of Special Education and Rehabilitation Services that supports kids with disabilities and the Federal Student Aid Office. That's at least what we know right now. I also want to read part of what the letter said to these employees. Quote, the agency finds, based on your performance, that you have not demonstrated that your further employment at the agency would be in the public interest. So it's begun.
So most of the 19th century, the civil service was open for patronage, right? It was handled by big city bosses and, politicians of both parties. In 1883, President Chester Arthur made the merit-based system civil service. And that was to get rid of politics in our civil service so we knew we could count on government employees to do the people's business, not the politicians' business. We are not just going back to some previous, thing in the 70s, 1970s, or the 1950s. We're going all the way back to the 1870s and how the President of the United States wants to govern. So whether he wants to be President McKinley and start annexing like new lands overseas, or he wants to go back to an earlier era where everybody's going to be beholden to the president and not beholden to the people. This is not, I think, what the American public signed up for. They wanted change, and the Democrats want change. All of us, I think, want to have a government that works for us, it's faster, it's more efficient, but we don't want a government that doesn't work for us and works for billionaires and the president of the United States.
Every 4 years, I mean, I'm just trying to put my head in the position of this country when Trump is not president, right? Every 4 years, presumptively now, the president's going to come in and the entire civil service of the government is going to change out, and all the things that you relied on the government to do, now you have no idea whether the government's going to do it or not because of the whims of the president. I think that is also something that we have to take seriously as a possibility here.
Well, the whims, as you call them, are embedded in the Constitution of the United States. The president's the head of the executive branch. He ought to be able to decide how to operate the executive branch and who works at the executive branch. And you say that the government shouldn't answer to the president, should answer to the people. Well, how do the people?
They should be responsible.
How do the people choose how to govern themselves? By electing a president. And so, look, these are probationary employees. I don't know how many it is, but all I know is this: government only ever seems to get bigger and never really seems to get smaller. He promised to make it smaller, and now they're making it smaller. To me, the political upside here is quite obvious.
And I think this goes hand in hand with the buyouts that were offered that the judge then put a freeze on, right? And so
if they can't, just to be clear, that freeze has now been lifted by the judge because the case
it's going to be appealed.
Going on.
So if it's, if they can't do it through the buyouts, then they're going to fire people. And who can they fire? They can fire the people who don't yet have union protection because they are probationary, as Scott just said.
Meaning they were more recently hired.
Yeah, which means I don't understand how they can be sending an email saying your performance has proven not to be up to par when they were just recently hired.
It seems like a bit
very
of
arbitrary.
It seems like a bit of they're trying to, it's kind of CYA, like you have to put that in there to justify firing someone, even though the firing is really more about Scott's point than it is actually about this person's performance, which we will probably end up seeing in court at some point.
Sure, they're taking care of these people. Normally when layoffs happen at regular companies, it's normally last in, first out. That is normally the case. But on the flip side of this, our government is bloated. It's overly bloated. We're operating at a $2 trillion a year deficit. The job growth that we've had in this country over the previous 4 years have mainly been government positions, not private sector positions, but government positions. And a lot of these people aren't actually doing the work. And yes, they don't have the protections of the union. And obviously, in my opinion, I think that's something that needs to change as well, because once you get to that piece where you're protected by these unions, it basically takes an act of Congress to get rid of some of these people who are not actually doing their job the way that they should. I heard somebody say something along the lines that 20% of the federal government workforce is responsible for 80% of the productivity. And if that is true, yeah, we can stand and get rid of some of these folks.
I want to go back to Jamal's point and respectfully disagree. You said, I don't think this is what the American people signed up for, but I think it's exactly what we signed up for. I don't know if any president in history spent this much time on holding accountability and efficiency to his own government. So the Department of Education has a $70 billion budget annually, yet we haven't seen any progress in the educational system over the last 4 years. We're ranked 13 in the world. We're like 24th in science, 18th in math. We're really not doing well on a global stage in terms of our education system performance. So I think evaluating, where is the $70 billion going? Where are we failing? And how do we make this better? I don't know if blind firings for probational employees is the right thing to do, but I think definitely investigating through DOGE why we are failing so badly in the DOE is absolutely the right move to do.
Yeah, we're spending $70 billion to get our tails kicked. Imagine that. We're getting our teeth kicked in on the world stage right now when it comes to academics. We're getting crushed in science. We're getting crushed in math. 70% of children aren't reading on grade level in elementary school. I mean, it's ridiculous. Something has to shake. Something has to be done. The fact that you have someone like, what's this lady's name here? Anna, this making this stupid face when she's talking about how we're getting our teeth kicked in, while I'm assuming she sends her children to private schools to make sure that they get the best education that they could possibly get. I mean, it's ridiculous to me. And the fact that this lady claims as a Republican, she's hands down one of the worst Republicans on TV.
Government office I've ever seen. You can walk through the door, you can ask anybody who around here is not doing their job. They'll tell you. People will tell you who's not doing their job. You can get rid of those people. I don't know if anybody would complain, but it's the mass firings that says something else is afoot. It's not just what they're calling it.
Agreed.
I think
There is something else afoot.
Yeah, I think that going off of what you were saying, Emily, with the budget, I think more than half of the budget goes to grants and loans for low-income students, for them to be able to attend college, things like that. And so, but I do agree with your point that we need to be doing more on education. And so there needs to be some sort of reform. And I think that this has been something that conservatives have long wanted, is shrinking the Department of Education. So I support all of that in that regard. But where I have the issue is these firings, and what is the reasoning for them? Are these people being laid off because maybe they're anti-Trump and posted things on social media? Like, what is these people deserve a little bit more of an explanation then.
No, there's no
just
mystery.
A vague email.
There's no mystery, and let me offer them an explanation. This administration would like to make the federal government smaller. We would like to spend less on payroll. You just got here, therefore you won't be working here anymore. It's pretty simple, and they shouldn't take it personally. But these guys got elected to shrink the government, and that's what they intend to do.
Scott, there has been like cold emails going to government workers even before Trump took office, in those 2 months between the transition, wanting people to snitch on each other, wanting colleagues to snitch on each other. Who supported Biden? Who did this? Who did that? There's websites targeting people who are government, not political appointees, civil servants. And I would tell you that I'm not sure everybody knew what they were signing up for. I remember reading the case of a VA worker who was moving to Washington because they just gotten a new employment, right? And now now it's frozen. And guess what? They voted for Trump, but they've sold their house, they've sold their car, they are ready to move to Washington, D.C. to be a VA worker, and now they're out of jobs. And so that's going to happen to Republicans, Democrats, and everybody.
That's happened to a lot of people. Try working in the private sector. It's happened to a lot of us. I've been hired on to positions, and 2 to 3 months later, find out that I'm laid off from my job. It's happened to a lot of us. That's life. That's what happens when companies want to shrink payroll, when they want to reduce outgoing money. People got to understand, the largest expense for any business is the human capital expense. the cost of payroll, benefits, the cost to hire, interview. It's hands down the largest expense that any business has. So if you want to reduce the deficit, one of the things you got to look at is payroll, because it's not just what these people make, it's also the benefits that the government is paying for as well. But let's get to the next clip. You guys got
a press conference, Scott.
Well, look, Elon Musk, who doesn't need to do this, has, he could be doing anything else. He's got companies. He's the richest guy in the world. Has decided to give his own time to a government of a country that he loves, that has given him all this opportunity. I take him at his word that he wants to be transparent, that he invites transparency. Obviously, everybody in the English-speaking world media is looking into him every single day. I would have no fear if I were him about Congress asking questions and looking into it. I think they are.
The definition of it is he's not been on the front end of this so far. He's not been transparent. I mean, there may be.
They are making routine announcements about the things they are finding, and they are inviting questions about the things they are finding every single day.
But by definition, he's not being transparent. They're not providing data for the things that they say they have found evidence of. They just aren't.
The White House has provided.
You can make announcements, and he also did admit that he actually.
So you just don't believe it. I mean, they are providing information. You just choose not to believe that it's true.
I don't think anyone should just believe that it's true. Do you think that people have taken kickbacks of tens of millions of dollars from USAID?
Here's what I think.
Do you believe that?
I think every year.
No, but don't accuse me of just like.
I'm just asking you. Do you believe that there is any level of fraud, waste, fraud, and abuse in the government?
No, that's not what you're asking me, and I'm going to ask the question. Don't accuse me of just like.
And so, if you believe that, do you believe that it's possible that they are finding and producing information about it? Of course,
that wasn't my question. My question was, by definition, they're not being transparent. They can continue to be successful.
What do you want them to do?
Provide data. If they're provide data that they have found people. Everyone would want to know if someone has received kickbacks to the tune of tens of millions of dollars.
I don't disagree with you. I love the idea of data. I love the announcements. I love them putting out regular reports of what they're doing.
They have not.
And I love the idea of Congress also bringing them up to report to Congress on what they're finding, because ultimately Congress needs to be engaged in this as well. I have no problem with that, and I don't think they do either, and that's what I heard in his press conference yesterday.
Okay.
And the American people asked for this. And the fact that this is the hill that they're willing to die on, they're willing to die on a lot of hills, be honest with you. But the fact that they're willing to die on that hill is just absolutely ridiculous. How are you, I guess not necessarily defending, but fighting against figuring out where our taxpayer money is going? I'm sure Kate makes a good amount of cheese on CNN. I'm sure she does. You're not upset with where your tax dollars are going? Now, if people are siphoning money, I'm sure there is a judiciary process that you would need to go through before they can just start announcing people names and things of that nature. But Caroline Leavitt, she has showed some documentation, in different briefings and things of that nature. She has shown documentation. So it is out there. This administration is extremely transparent, at least from what I'm seeing. And in comparison to the previous administration, these guys are given way more access than the Biden-Harris administration ever gave. And I don't see Trump sitting in front of a daggone teleprompter. I didn't see Elon in that interview during that press briefing there in the Oval Office with Trump a couple of days ago, sitting in front of a teleprompter, giving some speech that's been written for him by someone else. I don't see that. I see them sitting there asking questions. That's what I see. Y'all ask, they're answering questions. I don't know how much more transparent you can be. I would assume that eventually we're going to start to see some data. We're going to start to see some facts and some additional statistics that will come out. But this is what they're uncovering, and they're releasing it.
This is a power play, plain and simple. The president wants people to obey. He wants people to use the words he chooses. He wants people to fall in line. And if they don't, they lose their access. They're not allowed to be in the company of the president. Notably, in the last 2 days, when the AP reporters have been blocked, in one case, I'm told physically blocked from entering the Oval Office, the photographer was still allowed in, the AP photographer, right? Because the president still wants his photo taken. He wants the pictures, but not the words. This is a First Amendment violation, and I expect in the next few days, the AP will file suit. And they have a very strong case in court. This is yet another example where the courts will be the recourse for presidential action.
Brian, what are the other media outlets doing?
Right now, they're still showing up, they're still asking questions, but that's right, the Correspondents Association has condemned this and called it unacceptable. I think you're suggesting maybe reporters should, skip the briefing.
Should band together, because I
Skip
mean,
the,
listen,
Q&As.
if the bully manages to bully one, he's not going to stop at one.
I don't think this is as emotional as you're making it out to be. You know, take away the hysteria for a moment. First off, Trump doesn't need
Who's
AP
being
to
hysterical?
Take, both of you. Trump doesn't need, first of all, AP
You
to
obviously
take his
don't know what a
photographs.
hysterical Ana Navarro is
I
like.
just believe it comes down to compliance.
That's true,
Trump
actually.
put out an executive order. There was an executive order. He changed the name legally to Gulf of America. They're United States-based. I know they're international as well, but right now they're covering U.S. politics. So if he makes an executive order, they should respect that. And if they don't, being there is not a right, it's a privilege.
So
And
I'm
so
going to add in here, though, that this has been called the Gulf of Mexico for 400 years,
Right.
and every other nation calls it the Gulf of Mexico. So just because Trump
they're
claims that
operating
we
out of the
need to...
United States.
Okay, but doesn't this feel like a really weird, like, wokeism thing on the right? Like, it feels like the right's version of, like, Latinx or, like, birthing person. It just feels like a really...
You're reaching. And I have two things to say about this, and I'm going to let the video play. One, the Gulf of Mexico, it was named by early European explorers. And yes, it's been named this for about 400 years, but it was named by early European explorers, mainly people from Spain. Mainly. Not a big deal. Not a big deal. And the thing is that this isn't something that's, abnormal. We've had, multiple countries rename things, when new leaders take office. I mean, it's nothing new. If you go and check out Google Maps, you'll see for yourself that there's been a plethora of bodies of waters and different things like that that's been changed by new leaders. This isn't abnormal.
weird hill to die on.
Nobody, by the way, just to be clear, nobody had to comply with any of that.
Yeah, if the Biden
administration
did that,
and if they did,
people would be up in arms.
Your heads would be exploding at this table.
Maybe
If someone said to you, you've got to refer to people as
they should
birthing
adopt
people.
the Prince method. Just have a little symbol called the Gulf, formerly known as the Gulf of Mexico, which should now be called whatever the hell.
But there's a much broader.
The Gulf of whatever the hell he wants.
But there's a much broader danger. Today it's the Gulf of Mexico or the Gulf of America. Tomorrow, what is it? The president says there's only 2 genders in this world. We all know transgender people. What happens when the AP reports on transgender America?
Really? That's really? Brian Seltzer is a clown.
Americans. What happens when CNN or ABC or the New York Times?
Okay,
are those the next
what
outlets
if
to be
I believe
punished?
that there's 2 genders, and then Biden tells me that there's 73. I don't comply with that.
Yeah, but
the Biden administration
is
isn't barring Fox News from covering press conferences.
Right, he's not going to ban you from
And
coming
Trump
to
hasn't
the
done
White
that
House
yet.
because
This
you
is
have a
what I
different
mean
belief.
about
For the last 2 days, the AP has been blocked from attending events that it's attended for decades.
Executive
No,
order.
I really would rather you not refer to me
ban AP?
as hysterical for expressing an opinion. I think that's incredibly disrespectful. I don't do it to you.
Why do you think the AP won't just call it the Gulf of America? I mean, the president does rename things. We rename what's the mountain, Denali, Mount McKinley.
Let me read their explanation for why they are not doing it. Essentially, they are saying that Mexico. Trump's order only carries authority within the United States. Mexico, as well as other countries and international bodies, do not have to recognize that name change. The Gulf of Mexico has carried that name for 400 years, as was said at the table, and the Associated Press is going to refer to it by its original name, while acknowledging that Trump has a new name that he would like to call it. They are an international organization. No one except Trump with a pen has said that it's the Gulf of America. It's a body of water that also has borders with another country, and it's been named that for 400 years.
I know, but we have a lawful process in this country for changing the name of it. The president went through it with the Secretary of the Interior, by the way. I mean, it feels a little
different. Can I just answer your Denali question? The Denali thing is actually different because that's a place that's in the United States proper. It exists in
But we changed the name of it. The point is we changed the name of it.
We have the ability to change the name. It's Mount McKinley. It's Mount McKinley.
But we also have the ability to change this body of water. I think, look, this smacks to me of a news organization looking for a way to pick a fight with Donald Trump over something that they don't need to pick a fight over.
Exactly.
A. B, he is the president, and there is a lawful process that he did follow to do it.
The news organization did not pick a fight with Donald Trump over this. Donald Trump picked a fight with the news organization.
No, they're not calling it by the name.
No, the news organization can do whatever they want. If they want to call it the Gulf of South America, they can call it that.
But why would I respect a news organization that doesn't deal in reality?
But
You don't have
false
to.
information. if to not
Scott,
call it what
they
it
can
is.
call it whatever they want because there's free speech in this country. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes, but that, in my opinion, if you're not willing to call something by the proper name based on the laws of the United States, that calls into question your judgment. And are you a news organization,
by the way,
or are you
there
just?
are no laws in play here. It's an executive order, and the body of water is not named by the United States. It's named by global organizations that name global landmarks. It's not their law.
So you don't respect Donald Trump's executive order or the Secretary of the Interior's process on this either.
Donald Trump had an executive order, but the Associated Press is not bound by it.
Scott, what if the Biden
that's
administration did this, though, similarly? What if the Biden administration was barring, say, a Fox News because they weren't going along with an executive order where Biden said you must refer to every single transgender person as they, them, or whatever it was?
I think if you want to engage in
would you be supportive of that then? I think that it gets really dangerous when we start forcing terminology on people. I didn't like it when the left did it with things like Latinx, birthing person, you name it.
These things are not in any way, shape, or form related.
They're remotely
the Biden
similar.
administration treated the press as poorly as any president has ever treated them, gave them less access, answered no questions, no transparency at any given time. Donald Trump's answered more questions in 3 weeks than Joe Biden answered in 4 years. Elon Musk answered more than
and also a lot of the answers.
Come on, Brian. This
also,
administration is giving the most access to the press they could possibly
just
want.
to be clear, it's also changing the subject, and we're not changing the subject.
But you're asking about transparency.
No,
can the news be covered?
Actually,
and
we're
yes,
talking
it's being
about
covered.
the First Amendment. Freedom of speech.
Is he being
The AP will win in court.
Look,
the AP is going to win in court. If they go to court, the AP will win, just as CNN won in 2018 when a press credential was revoked. We're going to see the courts speak out on behalf of the First Amendment here.
I'm with Scott here that if he changes the name to the Gulf of America, whether they like it or not, them not calling it that, they are based out of the U.S. I get that they're an international organization. It's simply they're not reporting on the truth. So now if you're the president, you can argue they're not reporting on the truth.
Wouldn't
so
you
why are
agree
they
that the truth is also that the rest of the world calls it the Gulf of Mexico?
So technically, every other country could change the name of it too in their own country, then the journalists should comply with whatever their country wants to call it.
Wouldn't you agree that the truth...
Well, I tell you, these people are willing to die on the heel of stupidity. Don't understand it. It doesn't make sense, but it is what it is. It is what it is. They are looking for a fight. They're looking for a reason to be news, and they got it. Simple as that. But I want to hear from you guys. What do you guys think about this, man? Scott Jennings, man, holds his own on a day-to-day basis with these clowns. On a day-to-day basis with these clowns. And I'm 100% here for it, man. Like, share, subscribe to the channel. Keep God first of your life. Stay prayed up. We'll catch up with you all next time. Peace.
Vibes so raw, can't hide the truth. Words so sharp, they cut.